we still exist.
No, we don't.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why I was so tired.
Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
It's been a heck of a few weeks.
Yeah, it has been. We're always super busy before events. And we always joke about the fact that everything will break right before an event.
3 days, 4 days before we're supposed to leave for an event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes as much as a week. But then if it's a week, it'll be something major, like the water system or the electrical system or, some other major thing that really screws things up.
Yeah, fortunately that doesn't happen very often.
But we don't go on major events all that often, thank goodness, because we couldn't afford it if we did.
The lead up to leaving for the sales event that we're going to in Southern California was interesting. I had to go pick up some medications in Flagstaff from our physician, and I got 15 miles from his office, and the engine in the Subaru seized. Mm-hmm. So I spent hours on
waiting for a 3-letter automobile retrieval company that does a really, really crappy job in this part of the United States.
I think they do a bad job pretty much every place now.
Yeah, they used to be, super reliable. I mean, if you were really someplace obtuse, or if it was like really horrendous weather, like in Maine when we had a super, super duper cold snap, it's 5 degrees or it's minus 5 degrees, then you would have to wait a while for it to come jumpstart your car if the battery was dead. But, that's acceptable in those circumstances. But some of the stuff now is just...
Well, I sat on the side of the road for several hours with big rigs zooming past the car. I decided being in the car, around the car, was not safe. I got out of the car when there was a way to get out of the car, and I went down the road back towards where the traffic was coming from, so that if somebody hit the car, mm-hmm. I wouldn't be hit by flying metal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, when I worked in Maine for the Maine Historic Preservation Commission, we did a survey along the side of the highway, and we all had to wear our little orange vests, and we had to park our vehicles between the traffic and us. So if they were staring at people and they drove off the side of the road, they would hit the cars before they would hit the people.
Nice to hit your car and the other workers.
Right, right.
Well, as if that's not enough. So the next day, I got in our Range Rover and drove from home up to Flagstaff. Mm-hmm. The car worked perfectly, no problems, apart from the climate control still doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But we have some good news about that. Mm-hmm. I got the medications and came back home. Everything was perfect. Life was good.
Mm-hmm. We went to a meeting on Saturday, and just driving to the meeting, which is like half a mile?
No, it's about a little less than 2 miles from our doorstep. So a little less than 2
miles it overheated.
Once, and it turned it off, and it rejiggered itself, and we drove on to the event and then came back with no problems. And it was the last day of the countywide cleanup, mm-hmm. where I could take anything I wanted to the dump.
Right, we've been trying to take advantage. We usually take brush and weeds and stuff, because if we haven't kept up with burning over the course of the year, then you always wind up with a pile, and we try and get rid of everything like that, extra cardboard, anything bigger, right before towards the end of the cleanup event.
So we loaded, yeah. So we loaded the Rover up. The back end was full of stuff,
trash, and this and that,
and heavy stuff too. Because normally when you go to the transfer station, the dump transfer station, it costs per pound.
Right.
So
getting rid of heavy stuff is a good thing.
Yeah, we take advantage of these periodic cleanups. It's usually once a year for our county.
Yeah.
So, got ready to go, and I didn't get more than a mile from the house, mm-hmm. and the car started overheating. Mm-hmm. and it continued to overheat. I turned it off and waited for 20 minutes and turned it back on, and it overheated again. So I turned around and drove it back to the house, and we took everything out of the rover.
Mm-hmm.
And I called a friend of ours to come move us from our house to a repair shop in town.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's some wiring that needed to be fixed because rats had chewed it. And I was pretty sure that the thermostat on this rover had stuck.
Yeah, we've had that happen over the centuries that we've owned cars. You know, we've had it happen before.
So I took it in and spoke to the shop owner the next day and said, here's what I think is going on. We're leaving tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing I had a friend who has a rollback tow truck
Mm-hmm.
who could actually come and pick it up and go drive 3.5 miles on a dirt road.
Mm-hmm.
So he did that and we did that, and the owner of the shop said, okay, no problem. When do you need it? I said, well, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and I just need it then because the Subaru was dead, and I don't want to be driving this box truck all over the place.
Well, it's a diesel and it gets 10 miles per gallon, and
Well,
the AC doesn't work all that hot in it, and yeah.
Well, it works, but it has this big glass window, and
So it's
when
like driving along in a greenhouse.
well, it is a greenhouse.
Because my PT Cruiser was the same way. It had the huge glass window up front that was at just the right angle to pick up the sun, no matter which direction you were driving. Yeah.
At least we got going. So I left knowing that Danny was going to take care of the car while we were gone. He was going to fix the wiring, diagnose the thermostat, and fix that. That was great. We got to try our first full meal on the road
Mm-hmm.
that we did the freeze drying of, and it turned out really good.
Yeah, no, it worked. The whole freeze-dry process worked really well for us. We had snacks in the truck. You know, we had some junk snacks too, but we had some of the healthy stuff like the fruit and veggies and stuff. And then that night we stopped in Yuma, and
Yeah, too bad our friend Sandy from suburban Homestead, Wyoming and Arizona wasn't still home. They actually left to go back to Wyoming the week before.
right, well, they have to bail out before it starts to get hot.
It's
By
hot.
the time we got to Yuma, it's always hot. I mean, when we leave from California to come east, it's usually 60, 70 degrees in California because it's up in the mountains and it's close to the ocean, relatively speaking. And by the time you get down to Yuma, it's not uncommon for it to be 105 degrees.
Yeah.
So it was pretty nasty. The icing on the cake when we got to the hotel was, I got out of the truck and I'm like, oh my God, somebody had spread sheep stuff all over the grass to improve the lawns. Well, I mean spread. Every single piece of grass on that piece of property was just a little bit of grass showing. The rest of it was sheep stuff. And I don't know if you've ever smelled sheep stuff, but
It smelled pretty
and
rank.
it was awful, and I couldn't let the dog on the grass because I didn't want him to smell like sheep stuff because for the next 2 weeks, you know. And so it was icky. It was just like, ugh. In fact, when they asked me what I thought of the hotel, I said, well, staff was great, you know. But for crying out loud, don't put sheep stuff on the lawn, ever, just ever. You know, it's just
They put it on nice and thick so they could really invigorate that grass.
Yeah, and it works really great. My dad used to use it when I was a kid, but
Still smells.
it smells for a long time. And when it rains or they run the sprinklers, it resuscitates that smell. So yeah, we didn't miss that part. The hotel was fine though. We did the dinner thing in the room with dessert and everything, and that was perfect. Breakfast the next day, they didn't have breakfast at that hotel. It was one of the hotels that used to serve breakfast, and if you read the small print, you could see they no longer did. But when I asked, they're like, oh, well, you can eat in this nice restaurant that we have here. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I thought to myself, no. So we had some of the freeze-dried breakfast, and also we upped some protein shakes that we like. Used that, and then onward.
Well, to continue with the problems that we had right before we left, we got to the event site about 45 minutes later than we would have preferred to.
Right. We usually try to be at the gate when they say you could come in.
As it turns out, it wouldn't have mattered.
No. We would have just sat there for another hour. Because there was a lack of organization. I'm being polite.
That's putting it very politely.
It was a cluster. And that doesn't ever happen at that event, because the person who runs the merchant area has been running it for literally a decade, and was the helper for the person who ran it before it. So she's got all these gazillions of years experience. It was somebody above her who randomly made some decisions and decided to add roads, and oh my gosh. And we finally, basically, one of our friends who was next to us said, if we can't fix this one, I'm just going home. And I'm like, you need to let them know that, because you've had enough of this crap. And I was like this close.
It was, we sat around for 3 hours while they bickered back and forth about what could be done, what could not be done. And finally that we called for somebody else who supposedly had a position of authority. And they came in and said, what the heck's that person talking about? Do what you need to do. There does not need to be a road here. There's not need to be anything weird here. Just set. So then we had to scramble, of course, to even get the places up, because you have to get it done before the sun goes down. Otherwise, I mean, we've got lights. We've got really good lights. We've got big shop lights that run off batteries. But by that time, you're tired. You really don't want to be fiddling around. So we had to throw up our pavilions and get the bed set and all that kind of stuff. And then we did use the dinners again. And they were good.
Yes. The breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we did, I would say, more than 75% of what we ate.
The only thing that we didn't freeze dry and bring with us was a couple of ice creams that we bought.
Right.
And 3 apple turnovers.
Yeah, there's a guy who makes really, really good hand pies at the event. And he had apple ones. So we bought 3 apples from him. And then, we did get ice cream a couple times. Real ice cream that was cold.
Well, she said that because I also made some freeze-dried ice cream.
Right, and the freeze-dried ice cream is super delicious, but it's not cold. And it was a warm afternoon, and we just wanted something cold. But the freeze-dried meals worked like a dream. It wasn't one of these things where sometimes if you eat a prepared meal, you're like, okay, I ate that, now I'm hungry still and I need something else. No, it's just as if we've been at home and had eaten stuff, and and we made everything we made certain that Rufus could eat it too. So there was nothing in it the dog shouldn't eat.
No onions, no garlic.
Right.
And no artificial sweeteners.
Right, no artificial sweeteners, and he is also allergic to carrots and a couple of other things. So we made sure that none of that stuff was in there, so that if there were leftovers, which there wasn't a lot of leftovers, but if there was a little bit of leftover, he could just get it as a topper on his kibble. So it worked really well. Very, very pleased with that whole arrangement. And then when that event was done, we packed it up and drove up to Woodland Hills, stayed the night there.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much footage I have from the actual event. I had a few camera issues.
Right.
So,
and I know I didn't. I don't think I took any pictures.
I took some with my phone, and the other camera issues I'm not sure they worked out. But anyway, the event itself was a good event. The attendance was down.
Yeah, attendance is universally down. Well, one of the big groups that used to come was banned for inappropriate behavior. The people who used to play around the edges of that are starting to come back, but it takes a while whenever you have any kind of a upheaval, politically speaking, which is what it comes down to, politically speaking.
So yeah, we went from that park in San Diego County to Woodland Hills.
Right, because we knew we couldn't drive all the way that first day because it was just too long, and after you've packed everything down and stuffed the truck and everything else, you're tired. So, and driving through heavy traffic on Memorial Day is probably not the greatest idea. Well, you're driving a big truck, and actually the traffic was really not that horrific where we were, but it was enough. and it was better to stop and get an early evening. And we did an inner town location in Woodland Hills, which gave us easy walking distance to like literally a dozen restaurants. So it was just a matter of running through what they had and deciding which one we were going to go to.
So we did that. We had dinner. That's the first dinner we bought out the entire trip.
Right. Yeah, the only thing we bought out the entire trip was we got lunch on the way in. There's a really good sandwich shop on the way in. And that just makes sense to have a really good solid lunch on the way in.
Big thing is we didn't have to have it refrigerated.
Right.
And yeah, I'd made...
Oh, we saved a fortune in ice.
You know, I made freeze-dried things for the rest of the meals, but that first lunch, I wanted to make sure that we had a good solid lunch, that I didn't have to have refrigeration for, that I didn't have to worry about whether the mayonnaise was spoiling, whether the meat was spoiling, whether the cheese was getting drowned in water. None of that. And as Irene said, I think I bought one bag of ice at the event the entire time.
I think you did. I literally just one, because we came in with a good load of ice, but we didn't need any ice for anything except for drinks.
Yeah.
And I had some yogurt, some homemade yogurt to use with my granola. I had 2 canning jars full of homemade yogurt, which means it can be submerged and you don't have to worry about it because it's not going to leak, which was nice. We didn't bring that much. I mean, we had some butter in the cooler and drinks. That was it. So instead of buying a package of ice
a day,
we bought one. So right there, that was a biggie.
That saved us about $30 over the course of the event.
Right.
And for the meals, because we brought everything from home, I had absolutely no food loss. I had no food spoiling. We had a selection of whatever we wanted to have for lunch and dinner. And it worked out extremely well. I was able to reconstitute the food without a problem. And all said and done, we probably saved about $300 on food for this event, because otherwise I would be having to make food that the ingredients were not the cheapest, and having to worry about what order were we going to eat things in. And in the course of an event, it's easy to run out of ice, and then you've lost everything in your cooler.
Well, the drinks don't get lost, but all the perishables do. We tried not to carry much in the way of perishables, but if you want lunch meat, that's a perishable. The cheese is pretty tough. That doesn't perish easily, but still, you know, we saved good money on the ice, good money on not needing to buy. And it was, the food was so good that you didn't feel like you needed to buy anything. You know, you could smell the vendors and stuff like that, and you're like, mine was better than that. You know.
So we finally got home. If you watched a couple of days ago, you saw that we had a rattlesnake visit us right up against the foundation of the house, and Irene noticed it when Isa had just come in the house.
Right.
And unfortunately, it was right by the door.
Right.
The good news is it didn't try to come in the house.
Right. Well, it was distracted. I think he was probably paying semi-attention. It was probably crawling along the edge of the house. It was distracted by Isa, but then I swung the door open, and that startled the snake. So the snake was then focused on the door and me, and the cat was able to get in without any problem.
And the really great news is that Isa was not bitten by the snake.
No. I don't think she even saw it, because she actually likes to bang on snakes, because I've had to scold her for having arguments with gopher snakes before.
Yeah, if you don't know, cats have a reaction time that's twice as fast as snakes, which is one of the reasons why more cats don't get
zapped,
by venomous snakes. Well, enough of that. Let's talk about something that was a surprise when we got home.
Right. Actually, did it come right before we left, or right after we got back?
Right after we got back.
Okay, I couldn't remember. It's a bit of a haze at this point in terms of stuff.
So I go to the local quick market. It's the Corral Market. They very kindly agreed to take our packages for us from Federal Express or UPS, and then we also have the post office that will take packages that come through the Postal Service. Well, I got there and there was a package that I wasn't expecting.
No, we're like, oh, what's this? Did you order something? No, did you order something?
So we received something.
And it has no name associated with it.
It was a gift from Anonymous.
From Anonymous.
So, Anonymous, thank you very much. This is something that we've been looking at for several years, and we just never could quite decide to
Spring for it.
Yeah, and what we have, grab that other end.
Yep.
We have 2 huge heat mats
Right.
for starting seeds.
Yep.
And
It's in that piece of paper's instructions.
yes, and it's great because right now it's too hot to start seeds in our greenhouse. But in a few months, when we're back from our next event, the temperatures at night will be getting too cool to really start seeds successfully.
Right, so this is going to be very cool.
Now, the nice thing about this is we'll be able to put 2 of our large seed starting trays on these 2 mats.
Oh, yes, on the 2 mats.
Yeah,
Yes.
so one mat gets 1 tray. The
Well,
other
you
mat
could
gets-
use it. You could actually, these are big enough that you could put the big tray that we have on it plus a regular tray.
So we'll be able to start more seeds, which is great.
We just have to decide. We've made a decision that our forecast for the summer is like the hottest summer they've ever seen around here, practically. So between that and needed to do some minor repairs in the greenhouse and having a lot of work to do before we go to our big event in July, we're not going to plant anything new before we leave. I have peas that are in the garden that are doing pretty well. I haven't seen any flowers on them yet, but with the seed spell, we may not get any. But they look good. The plants look good. So it's just a matter of whether they decide to give us any peas out of the deal. I have a couple of tomato plants. I'm going to transplant them out into the garden. I have
The outdoor garden.
The outdoor
because
garden.
If you remember from the past, we did all of our tomatoes in the greenhouse.
Yeah, well, we used to do them all in the yard, and then we did them all in the greenhouse, and then we did half and half, and yeah, we flipped back and forth. So this year, those plants are going to go in the garden, and I've got walking onions in one bucket. They were a gift from a friend, and they're doing really well. They're getting ready to drop off. They've got, if you've never seen walking onions, they're funny. It looks like a regular onion plant, and then at the top of the stalk, you'll wind up with a cluster of baby onion plants. So,
And then the stalk eventually bends over,
right,
and those onion, let's call them onion sets,
yeah,
the little onions, touch the ground,
and they'll spring roots, and that's how they call them walking, because if you leave them unattended, they'll just literally walk around and create this onion patch. And I've been wanting to get some for a while, and somebody said they could spare one, so I'm like, okay, I'll take one. And that's doing really well. I will probably leave that. I have to decide. I may leave that in the pot and just stick it on the north side with irrigation. The thyme that I have in there, I will probably transplant into the center bed, because that's all different herbs that have gone crazy in there. But I'll clear out a section of peppermint and just slap that in there. It'll be fine.
Our outside beds of berries are doing very well, but they're being beat to death by the
We've
wind.
had some wind damage. You have definitely some wind damage. And I can't decide if there's anything else going on or not. Something's been munching on a couple of the blackberry plants, but it's just individual leaves here and there mostly. They are full of fruit right now. The blackberries are full of fruit.
They're
They're
flowered,
green.
yeah.
They're actually fruit.
Yeah.
It's just they're green right
I
now.
haven't looked at them in the past couple of days.
I told you should pay attention. Say he doesn't pay attention.
I pay
He
attention.
doesn't listen either.
I was on. I've been driving again.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other set of stories. Anyway, so, yeah. So we're going to be transplanting the stuff out into the garden. We're going to leave the greenhouse essentially fallow until we get back.
Now we'll run the fans at a higher temperature because we don't want all of the PVC that's in the greenhouse
To melt.
to sag because of the
Yeah.
heat.
We'll do
Piece
some
of
minor
PVC.
repairs because we've got a couple of zip ties and stuff that have croaked out there. I'm just gonna stabilize it and then put the fan on low.
The rhubarb has done very well this year.
Mm-hmm.
We've harvested some. It's in the freezer to be freeze-dried.
Right.
And we decided to not harvest the last little crop of asparagus out of the asparagus bed
And we never
right
do.
before we left.
Yeah, because
So-
sometimes we'll take it with us if we're going to be doing a lot of cooking. But we had a bunch of freeze-dried asparagus that we actually took with us as snacks. And so we had asparagus on the trip, but we did not take any fresh that we had to cook with us.
So, that's kind of a quick roundup of where we are. Well, where we are, we're home.
We're home, yes.
There's a few things that are annoying that have to be fixed, including I have a hinge on the front door that I have to find a replacement for.
Yeah, and the places we've gone haven't had the right hinge.
No, a lot of them are meant for much flimsier doors that have
And
no
this is
weight.
a solid wood door, and it's
Yeah.
heavy.
And it's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, we have Rufus laying right here by our feet.
And the cat's locked out of the bedroom because I didn't want to get landed on. Just in case. I mean, she decided she would stay outside longer than she should have this afternoon. Because it was too hot. And I told her she needed to come in. And she gave me the meow attitude, you know. So I'm like, fine, melt if you want. And then when I walked past the front door, she's like, meow, let me in. So I let her in, of course. And she immediately threw herself on the floor because the floor is stone. So she was like, plop. Oh, it's cooler in here. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's hot.
Passive air conditioning for our
Passive
pets.
air conditioning, yeah. So they you can always tell when it's extra hot. They'll go lay on part of the stone floor or the yeah.
Do you know what time it is?
It's time to get going. I've got more stuff to do before dinner, and you have more stuff to do before dinner,
And I gotta make dinner.
and you got to make dinner. But at least we know what we're having. So
We do. And it's not freeze dried.
it's not freeze dried. No, we haven't had any. Have we had any freeze dried? Yeah, we did. The
First night we
first
got
night
that.
home, and he's like, "What are we going to have for dinner?" I said, "We have plenty of freeze dried meals. Let's just choose one and eat it." And it was delicious. You know, when we used to do everything as canned items or frozen items, that's exactly what we would do sometimes. You know, you're like, it's 8 o'clock at night, we're exhausted, somebody's got to cook dinner. I think the microwave should cook dinner. You know, and you defrost something and you eat it. And it becomes a convenient food at that point, which is what it was.
Well, thanks for
Yes?
thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we're back doing videos
Yep.
again. I'll salvage as much of the footage from our event as I can, and we'll see what I can put out in the next several days.
Right.
Don't forget to brainstorm. We're certainly continuing to do that here.
Right. I need to take some pictures of flowers. I've got some really nice flowers in the yard. Got to take pictures and show everybody.
No more reptiles.
I would be good with that. This has been a reptile spring.
Everybody's having rattlesnakes this year.
Yeah. I have seen more posts online than I've ever seen before. So, not my fave.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.